Hi, welcome back to Mepicon 40. And we're here with a panel of folks that have designed games, engineered games, planned amazing games for your entertainment, to talk a little bit about that process and what it's like. So we have Min Kreiner from Carcosa Creations, and we have Dan Hundycz from DPH Games, who's off screen right now. That's okay.
Can you see my little? Can you see my little weird face icon?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's all that matters.
And I love it. And the amazing Manda Shafer.
Yes. Ooh, I get a nickname.
Well, I think you're amazing. I love your game. All right, so let's just go around the room, the boxes, whatever, and say a little bit about yourself and how you first got started in the game creation process.
Ooh. Who do you want to start with?
How about you?
Of course, I figured as much since I spoke up first.
Yep, that was your...
There you are, Dan.
Yeah, I'm in outer space.
Nice. Hi, I'm Min Kreiner with Carcosa Creations. My husband and I, we write and run Cthulhu and Lovecraftian themed live action role-playing games. As of this point, we have approximately 50 scenarios, 4 of which are now entirely virtual and run through Zoom. We actually debuted number 4 last night, making it its origin at Mepicon, because we always like writing special stuff for Mepicon. And I also am the assistant lead ST for Miami by Night, the official By Night Studios Discord-based LARP. It has 4 venues. Vampire, both Anarch and Camarilla, Changeling, and Werewolf. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Woohoo.
Amanda, you go next.
Okay, I can. I'm Manda Shafer. I'm new to this scene. I actually haven't published any games yet, but I'm in the process of developing one. And that's all Dan's fault. I don't know how I got started. I just had this. Actually, when you'd be interested in this, it kind of started as a vampire game, like 5-6 years ago before they come out with edition. And I was always like, well, it'd be cool to vampire game that spans longer generations. And so I came up with this game and played it. And actually, I played it at Mepicon a few times. It was really cool. It is nowhere near what it was when I started, but yeah, Dan really encouraged me to get moving with it, and so I'm a newbie in this process.
That leaves me, right? Or no?
Yeah. Okay,
now it's getting windy out here. So I started in 2013, had an idea for, well, actually it all kind of began because a friend of mine was having a birthday party. It was geocaching themed, and I went online to buy a geocaching board game, and there wasn't one. So ended up making one, and the people at the party were board gamers, not geocachers, and they're like, "Hey, this is pretty cool. You should do something with it." And so we went to Running Gag and met a guy there that used to work for Mayfair Games, and he helped us out a lot, and started down that path. Got incorporated and got some shareholders, and then it's like, well, what else do I know? And I was a counselor previous to this life, and so the next game was psychological warfare because I knew psychology. And then oh god, cats came about because this guy in our office who knows nothing about board gaming kept saying, you should make a bird watching game, you should make a bird watching game, because there's like 80 million bird watchers and I can sell to them. And I kept, he doesn't know anything about Wingspan. I won't even tell him because, God, never hear the end of it. But I'm like, deck of Audubon bird cards and flip the card over and say, look, there's a bird, and we'll call it Flip the Bird. And I was making that joke repeatedly for about 6 months, and somebody walked by at an event and said, well, you call it bird. Now that sounded interesting. So anyway, we developed that one. And then, let's see, I think Affliction about Salem came about because one of the Salem board games said you play the good guys hunting witches, and that got me all fired up because I'm like that.
Yeah, that's not right.
yeah. So I got all like, oh, we got to do a historically accurate one. Gate of Relay, I don't even remember where the idea started on that. Inca Empire is not my design. We had signed the designer of Inca Empire board game. He had a card game he created, and so we published that. In Tents, two separate words, is a camping game that a camping distributor had us make.
Sensing a theme there.
Yeah, Agent 299 came about because with each game we produce, we get a free 10-pack of cards, and so we were actually driving to state presentation, and I said, hey, I need a 9-card game because one would be the rules and the cover card, and he said, hey, well, you can play a game where you can't see your own cards. And so Agent 299 was kind of born quickly there. And then I'm probably forgetting something. But anyway, so we've been around for a little while, and we got a few things in the works. Amanda's game being part of that.
Yeah. Dan, you forgot my favorite game that you've created. Name the Waitress.
Oh, well, yeah, that one's free. Name the server. And that was to put on the back of the postcards that we hand out. Because we had all our games on a postcard, and basically, 80% of the people are just chucking them. So on the other side, we put a little game that you go and have to guess the name of your server, and there's a point system, and everyone gets 3 tries, and then somebody put that up on Board Game Geek, which I thought was hysterical. So I'm waiting for the feedback about, the scoring in the second round is a little imbalanced or something. But it's a silly little fun thing. And I'm actually glad it's on Board Game Geek because I don't have the card with me all the time. So you can go up and look at the image, which has all the rules when we're out at a restaurant and play it.
Neat.
You're official when you've hit Board Game Geek.
Yeah, well, pretty much everything's up there, but except that one I didn't put up there. I don't know where that came from, and it was like
arrived,
and it was a black and white like photocopy of it or something. It was really so I replaced that image with a color one, and then we have stuff in the works. So
yeah, I'm anxious to talk a little bit more about that. But I'd like to introduce our other guest, Ed Bond of MetaDreams.
Oh, hey, Ed.
Hi, Ed. You're muted.
Well, I can tell Ed's story for him.
Ed, actually. Ed.
Come on, Ed.
Oh, there you
go.
You
go. I can talk, right? You got me?
Yep, we hear you.
Dan knows my story pretty well because I've been following him around like a puppy for the past 2 years. Everywhere he goes, I go. Do you want me to launch into my spiel or tell you?
Sure. What we're starting with is who you are and how you got started in game design.
Okay, so my company's MetaDreams. And it was started in a meta dream because I had a dream where my wife and I sat down at a checkerboard, and she said, I said to her, go ahead, honey, make the first move. And she looked at me like I was nuts. Like, I don't play checkers. You're crazy. But there was dice on the board, and she picked up a pair of dice and rolled the dice on the board and moved the checker like a knight. And I said, very funny, but that's not how you play checkers. And then all of a sudden I realized, but it could be. And then I realized, oh my God, I just invented a new game and I'm dreaming. So I decided I wanted to wake up and tell her all about the stream I just had. So I wake up and I start telling her about the stream. I says, oh, there's 2 dice. And says, oh, we can have the chess moves on 1 die, and that'll be 6 sides. And the other dice will have a regular D6 with the pips as usual. And then I realized I was still dreaming. So I was dreaming about a dream. So it was a very meta experience. And so I had to wake up again in order to tell her for real what I'd come up with. So that was the first game, Meta Checkers, and I took that to a lot of conventions.
Here, I rang the call button. They're there.
Hello?
Sorry, I'm double tasking here. We're getting into a sound studio here in Ohio. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, cool. So anyway, I've taken that to all sorts of conventions here in New York, Pennsylvania area. I've been to MEPACon and Running Gag and a whole bunch of them out there. But what I was doing was I was learning what gamers really wanted to get. And because people came to me with ideas and suggestions, and so I started building on that. So like kids wanted to do crazy extra things with their checkers, and so I added a third die, which is the kangaroo die, which gives you 6 extra crazy moves. And then other people wanted to start creating shapes, or they wanted to create they wanted to be able to build on that. As a matter of fact, I was at MEPACon, and the players there were like cutting up pieces of paper and trying to make things. And I was standing there thinking, I should allow people to be creative and inventive within the game. And the other thing I realized is there was no reason to keep playing this on an ordinary square board. So I decided to break up that board. And it took me a while to figure out exactly how to do this and how to make it look right and how to make it work. And so now they are these puzzle board tiles that are basically the chessboard has been broken up into squares of 4 squares each, and they're a jigsaw puzzle. They're jigsaw puzzle pieces, but they all fit together and they all interlock and they all interchange. And so you can create a new kind of chessboard every time that you play. So you can play meta checkers on that, and you can also have puzzle board chess. And now I'm adding new themes to my games. There's a soccer game. There's a theme for meta checkers battlefield, which is with the puzzle board tiles, and that's when gods collide. And I've got others in the pipeline, and I have other ideas behind that. But I'm basically a one-man show here, so I can only do one thing at a time, and so I'm just slowly building and trying to make the success of actually it's the 3 games that I'm working on, which is this Meta Checkers Soccer, Meta Checkers Battlefield, and Puzzle Board Chess. And those are the 3 that I feel have a good chance at getting some traction. So that's why I'm taking it out to these cons and trying to get feedback from folks.
Well, we love seeing new games and people playing games and giving feedback. All that stuff is, I mean, that's what makes a con really exciting, I think. So how about where does your inspiration come from for your ideas for your games? What about you, Min? Where do you get all these crazy ideas from?
Honestly, there's a lot of sources that we get ideas for our games from. A lot of our games, for those of you who haven't played our LARPs before, are historically based, because my husband is a professional historian with a PhD, actually teaches history on the collegiate level at SUNY Cortland. And a lot of our original games that we've branched out over the years were started as, okay, here's a historical event. Let's take that, twist it, and add some monsters to it. And it's evolved over time now. For example, the game that we debuted last night, Voyage of the Outbound Soul, is one of the now prequel, if we're talking timeline-wise, of 4 games total that is set in the distant future and has heavy influences from the science fiction writer Cordwainer Smith. So we pull inspiration from a variety of different places, but one of the things that we try to do is, if you're familiar with the Marvel movies and shows, how they have those little Easter eggs hidden throughout. We have little Easter eggs that link to our other games so that it's not necessary to play all of our games, especially considering the breadth of our library that we've created at this point. But it adds to the richness and the lived-in feel of the universe, that there's little ties and connections that more frequent players are able to draw upon. But it could be something as simple as we watch a movie and we're like, you know, we could probably twist that into a really good scenario. And we take inspiration from all around.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
You're responsible for November 2016, aren't you?
Which part of November 2016 are you referring to? Because there's a few things that we did during that con that were pretty fun.
No, I was talking about right before the con, but never mind.
No, I don't think that was us then.
Okay.
We are responsible for parading our players through the vendors area of one of the November Mepicons, all while in pirate gear, and that was fun.
That was phenomenal.
For Curse of Blood Island, that was a doozy. I was very proud of that LARP. It was actually the first LARP that we introduced our puzzle mechanics to add a layer of richness to the games and to really get the players to think rather than just be insane. Because that does sometimes happen in the games where people, you know, go down the insanity slide very, very quickly. And sometimes little bits of the plot end up getting missed because, well, when you're completely crazy, little details like plot sometimes fall a little to the wayside. But the puzzle mechanics really helped to keep them focused. And we actually brought that back again in Voyage of the Outbound Soul last night, which was really interesting with bringing puzzles into a digital LARP versus having physical props that are the puzzle for players to solve. So that was a fun bit of game design to do.
So what about you, Manda? Where's your inspiration come from?
So for this one, I think it was, I don't know, I just decided to make a game one day. That probably sounds crazy. Well, maybe not to you guys. That probably sounds perfectly normal.
Yeah, it does.
You know, well, as I mentioned, like it kind of branched out from another one. What were you gonna say, Dan?
It started a long time ago, so it's hard to remember sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I would say like, what, 5-6 years ago was the first time I played it. And I tried different settings and stuff like that. I've done storytelling, you know, played, you know, D&D, Pathfinder, Vampire for a long time. So I really wanted to make something that was a good storytelling game, but then had some kind of mechanics to it. And so I wanted, once I actually started getting going, the theme now is like science fiction based, it's near future. And I think I did that because I wanted to make it somewhat familiar so players could put themselves in it. But I really got working on it in earnest during quarantine, during the last, 2 years, I feel have just been like crazy for everybody, regardless of which side of the spectrum you're on, politically, socially. And so I didn't want anything that was going to be too close to reality. I feel like games are a great way to break away from whatever you have going on, but they're also a good way to reflect on what's currently happening. So that was, I think, my inspiration for a lot of the stories that I have going in the game. I learned a lot, I did look through history, try to find examples of stuff that happened, and, kind of like, okay, so, this happened 100 years ago in New York, how could I switch it so it's on Mars? So yeah, just reading a lot, researching a lot. And then as you play test it, people are like, it'd be really funny if X, Y, or Z happens. And so just taking in that feedback and adding to it.
Yeah, I think that's great. I don't know if Dan's in a place where he can talk.
I can now, but I'm muted.
Well, you can always feel free to unmute. So where does your inspiration come from, Dan?
I'm in a sound studio right now, and everyone's coming in. So I went to another sound studio, and it's quiet. It's sort of Amanda's answer. It's all sorts of places, and I think I remember like after Psych Warfare going, where am I ever going to come up with another idea? and then the cats thing happened, and then I think I kind of already ruined this question by answering it sort of on the, Affliction was because I read the back of a different game. Data relay, I just cannot remember. Name the Server was actually a group of us would get together every 6 months and go out to dinner and sort of play that. And then there was controversy over who won. And one of the guys says we should start a Facebook group with the rules on it. And so as I'm writing up the rules, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, we could make this the game. So it's, I forgot Madoshi. And that one was a game store owner came to me and said he was playing, it's kind of like Candy Crush, but those kind of computer games, saying there aren't a lot of board games like that. Now Potion Explosion has come out since then, but so that one came from someone else. I cannot even Usurp the King. I think I just wanted, Game of Thrones was hot, and I wanted to, I always Diplomacy is one of my favorite games. Sorry, Matt and Amanda. I've always loved that kind of thing. But the problem with Diplomacy is you play for 4 hours and backstab somebody and they want to kill you. So, Usurp the King is like a half-hour game. And so, you stab somebody's person they're supporting. It's not as painful a thing. And then Legacy at Sea, oh my God, that thing has been around for 6 years. And that came about because we were playing Cats in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and this game store owner says, well, why don't you retheme this as pirates? And it started as that, but it didn't work. And then it kind of grew and grew and grew and shrank and grew and changed and shrank and grew. And now where it's almost at a point where, some of you played last night, it's definitely much more playable. It still needs fine tuning, but it's getting there. So I don't know if there's a great answer to that question. I think it comes from everywhere. And unless you're Ed Bond, then you have a dream, and that's how he gets his.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say to Ed is like beyond dreams. Where does it come from?
I don't know if he has any.
Well, Edison, I think it was Edison said that inventing is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. So you might get a flash of an insight from a dream, but that's just the starting point. And then you have to sort of test it against reality a few times, and then you get ideas back from people, and then it starts building on from there. So it's a starting point for me. So.
Yeah, and it's a really good point, Ed, because a lot of people have ideas for games, but it's actually making the idea work that's the challenge, as Amanda will attest to. And I'm still pissed at Edison for electrocuting an elephant, but that's a whole other thing.
I'm pissed at what he did to Tesla, but anyway.
Yeah,
I actually have that in my game. One of the quotes was like, I heard they killed an elephant, and it's referring to some other scientific invention, but...
but it, you have a lot of ideas, and there'll be people that come up and, I have this idea, but I can't tell it to you because, I need an NDA. And it's like, I'm not going to steal your idea because it's too small an industry.
Yeah.
And you get killed for doing that. But B, ideas, there's millions of them. It's making it work. And, if you come up to me and say, I have a game that's 90% working, or in Amanda's case, 10% working, and then no, it was more than that. Then it's a much more viable conversation.
So what do you think means that you've been successful? What is the thing that says to you, and I'm going to take off the table, like I've sold millions of games and dollars, right? Because
well, that's just not true.
Right?
For me, it's easy when you're out play testing it, and it's not what people think. It's not when people say that was fun, because a lot of people will say that. It's when people look at me and say, where do I buy this game? Because there's a huge gap between separating you from your money and saying, oh, that was fun, but doesn't mean you're going to play it again or buy it when it comes out. So where do I buy this game? How can I buy this big game? When do I buy this game?
It comes down to customer discovery, if I can jump in. And that's what I've really been working on is you want to find out what people are willing to buy. Like Dan said, what are you going to? Yeah, and there's a book out. I've been pitching this around to my friends in the entrepreneur group. It's called The Mom Test. And basically the premise is that people will lie to you all the time saying, yes, that's a wonderful game, and then not buy it. But people stop lying to you when they actually buy the game, when they actually put their, decide to spend money. Then they're not lying to you. As to success, right now it's been a matter of just finding where I'm getting traction and where so I'm measuring my success in very small ways. I had a handful of games on Amazon and they sold out. That's success.
How about you, Min? What makes it successful for you?
So for me and Carcosa Creations, because we're an experience-based product, if you're going to label it as a product, we don't sell our experience necessarily, especially because a lot of the times we're going to conventions where we're not charging a fee to get into our games. We're doing this because we love what we do. And we've written as many games as we have because we love what we do. But for me, what has been success is what's essentially become the jokingly and lovingly nicknamed Carcosa cult. We have players that follow us from con to con to con across New York, across, some of them have even come into Pennsylvania, even though they live far away in New York. And they keep wanting to come to our games. They keep asking for more scenarios and interacting with us and saying, hey, I had an idea for a game. Can you guys make this work? And that's happened quite a few times, more than you'd expect. And one of the things that Kevin and I were really proud to actually start supporting is some of our fans have gotten to the point of understanding our rule set and how our games tend to flow. And they're like actually having a concept of their own and trying to develop it and asking us for help developing it using our rules set. And that probably, at least for me, is the one of my things that I would consider a shining pinnacle of success, because I'm actually helping to inspire more people with designing games. And at some point, once they're developed, I'm really hoping that I will be able to take the role with Kevin of just being mentors and letting them run under Carcosa Creations and letting them have a moment to shine and start their journey the way we did, because Kevin actually was mentored originally by the amazing people at Elder Entertainment, Megan and Eli Levine. And we still actually run under their name when we go to Gen Con, because they're kind of our parent in that way, with helping what became Carcosa to start. So success really for us is player enjoyment and the community that it is built up and the ongoing memes. Such as your boy. Yeah, such as your boy for Naharlatep after opening of the mouth, which has now even turned into merchandise because people have begged us to actually put it on shirts or something, which now has come to life as of this week, which I'm super proud of Aubrey for doing that artwork. And again, she's one of the Carcosa family with our fans.
Right. How about you, Manda? What's
well, since I don't have a published game yet, I think my success is going to be, I'm just doing this for fun. It's not a job. It's just something I've been doing on the side. So when I get maybe a version that's shrink wrapped and I can just hold it in my hand, that's going to be the success, because, I'm making it for me. I'm making it because I want to go through the process. It's something that's fun and that I'm enjoying. So that'll be, it'd be great if people like to play it and want to play it and, we sell copies of it. That'd be wonderful. But for me, it's just finishing it. I'm one of those people who chronically starts things and never finishes. So actually seeing something through would be success for me.
No, you're doing better than your husband.
That's true. That's true. He came up with this wrestling game that was pretty good, but I don't know where it's at.
And the last thing he said to me is, it's a lot harder to make a game than I thought.
Isn't that the truth?
All creative processes, I think, are a lot harder than what we think when we're not doing it, right? So what's something about designing games that you think people don't realize? Like somebody that's never tried to do this wouldn't have any idea as part of either the process overall or your process.
I'll jump in quick here. So I think the play testing thing is kind of funny because people think you just sit down and play, and each time we play test, it's work to me, and that I have a set objectives. Here's the things we're looking at this time. How did they work? And in my defense, it's often why I lose during playtesting because I'm thinking about the game instead. That's what I tell myself anyways. Why I lose is thinking about how this functions, how it operates. Is it, like in Legacy at Sea, is how is the game going to end? What's the pacing, the timing, that kind of thing. So you have kind of a set list of things you're working on, and it's tedious. I mean, God bless these playtesters that, every week they're playing the same game over and over. And we've been playing that one for a few months now, and they keep coming back and playing. They must enjoy the testing process, but it's not all fun and games. Even
when we're talking about games.
Yeah.
I'll jump on that one too. I think having the ability to let go of stuff, like you get something, you're like, this is a great idea, I love it, I want to make it work, and when you get through it and it doesn't work, you just have to let it go. Maybe put it put it somewhere for another game or something like that. But you can have a great idea and it might be great for something, but it's not for that, and you have to let it go.
Yeah, there is stuff you absolutely have to throw out because it just doesn't work. And there's some designers that just won't. And also be open to people's comments. So like, Min, I'm sure people come up after and say, oh, what if you did this and what if you did that? Ultimately, it's your game and you decide what to put in and not. But to hear them anyway is worth it because some stuff's crazy. But there's a number of things that have ended up in games that somebody suggested, and the play testers oftentimes, in my case, because lately it's been online, will sort of jump on somebody, say, no, you can't do that because of that, and I'm like, just hear it out, and it's ended up being something that we've used because it got applied a different way than they envisioned it.
Yes, I could definitely agree on that, especially going off of what Dan and Manda said. Pruning your ideas appropriately and not trying to do too much at once, especially because of the difference with LARPing versus a board game, with not trying to have too many plot threads out there. You need to have enough for players to hook onto, and some inevitably are going to be put to the wayside anyway. But if you have too many plot hooks, you end up with things being scattered. And that's actually one of the things I really love about our particular medium, whether in person or virtually speaking. Every time we run one of our scenarios, even though it's the same base characters, it's the same base plot idea, it never runs the same. Because with a different group of players and a different actual physical place, or just it being online instead, it always causes a bit of a change to how things actually go. Kevin and I are in a different mindset in a particular day, and we might emphasize a little bit differently when explaining something than we had in a previous run. And it really creates this beautiful butterfly effect of how things change and grow. And if you don't prune out too many of those ideas, it's like when you have too many paints that are wet on a canvas, it gets muddled. It turns into a dark, murky brown mess that is not fun and honestly kind of gross looking.
Well, and I think that's something that Trish and Eric and I can relate to in taking over Mepicon, is that same idea that, you know, I love Ed Lehman. He's one of my favorite people, but he was a technophobe, still is a technophobe. So we really had to, we had a lot of ways that we were like, oh, we could do this better, we could do this differently. But there is a danger in doing too much at once. And, you know, really taking the feedback from people, and some of the feedback we couldn't follow through on and others we did. And, but it's a similar idea to what you said in pruning. What's not working for us and what is, and what can we expand on? And it's a very similar idea.
Yeah, I think what's the core fun? You know, what's the core thing that makes it fun, and trying to get rid of everything else. And the getting rid of thing is a lot harder than people think, because you may have spent months on getting this thing the way you want it, and then realizing it just doesn't work. And so it's hard to let go of that or set it aside. Ed, any other thoughts there?
I think my stuff has started out so simple that it's always sort of been in its core. But I definitely see that when I try to expand on something and I try pitching it to somebody at a demo table and they're like, dude, that's too much. You know, I've had those moments. Yeah, I mean, there's a old saying about don't be afraid to give up on something even though you've spent a lot of time making that mistake.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, that's great advice that applies to so many different things.
Yeah, and I don't, but I don't see them as mistakes. I mean, I get the quote and I get what they're saying, but they are steps along the process.
Right.
And I needed to throw that out to get to the next thing, whatever that thing is. I know that's vague, but I mean, Amanda, we had money you could spend, came and went, influence tokens, I think they were called. favor tokens came and went.
Yeah, tokens, money, all kinds of. I think I've probably thrown out 90% of what we've come up with.
Yeah, and again, the hard part there is because that game is different in the sense that it's more of an RPG than a board game, and all these board game play testers keep coming in, me included, saying, "Oh," and I'm finally learning, and so
you are.
But you hear me arguing with some of the play testers, like, no, can't do that. I mean, I love it. I love board games, but it's too board gamey for this game. And that's the stripped down opens it up to role playing, but it's, again, not easy. You had to throw out a lot of good ideas that you had and other people.
Not even just that I had, that play testers had. I've had play testers. I'm like, that's an awesome idea. I wish it would work. And it just didn't, or it didn't fit the vision of the game.
Right. You know, some of those things work. They just were like, okay, that's really cool for a board game, but it's not what you want.
Right.
And sorry, Ed.
It's okay. Go ahead.
One of the things that Dan had mentioned with them not actually being mistakes, but opportunities to see something different, I see it almost as an evolution. That you can take those steps that didn't work, but you could use them to build upon and say, okay, I know this doesn't work, but let's try going in this direction instead. And honestly, being able to be more flexible with games that I especially consider my baby definitely helped me to be a better game designer by being able to let go and be more, not just flexible, but a little bit more hands-off with the ability of, okay, this isn't working. Maybe I could recycle it another time. and coming to terms with that sometimes can be really hard when you've put so much work and so much effort and literally sometimes blood, sweat, and tears into something. And
True.
yes, and even as hard as it may be, just saving those ideas for a rainy day when they could be useful for a different project and spinning them into something new.
So do you have any anything that you would put on your like blooper reel, outtakes? I know Min has probably got 100 of these stories, but you know, something unexpected that happened at the table or the virtual table, like, wait, I didn't see that coming. Or I think, man, I have some things in mind that when we've been playtesting your game, that I'm thinking of Jay mostly.
The J bomb.
Yeah, that'd
anyway,
be...
anything like that, unexpected nuggets.
Well, I think that's what makes a and again, in the board game design, that's what makes a good play tester. Is so we have one guy that he really isn't a big time board gamer, but he's a big time poker player, and so he sits down to play Legacy at Sea and immediately starts trying to just attack the other pirate ships, and essentially not knowingly, but essentially trying to break the game, because he just thinks so differently, and that's awesome stuff because you can't just assume everyone's going to play something a certain way. And another tester we have is he's so focused on winning that he just does stuff. He finds stuff to do to try to win. And again, he's apologizing for it later, but we're like, no, we needed to know that was a kind of a cheat, for lack of a better term, that he could use this thing to his advantage. So, and you know, we feel bad because then we keep fixing it so he can't use it again, and he has to find a new one. But it's not because he's winning and I'm losing. I keep mentioning this part about, did I mention I don't ever win these games? So yeah, it's just how it goes. Even Usurp the King, Amanda always wins if I'm playing.
Because he makes me win, not because I'm so good at the game that I win.
It's not like I'm trying to make you win. You just do. Anyway, so it's, I guess, I mean, I have specific stories in mind, but they're just a little too, you need to know too much about the game to, know. But, the one guy winning on the last turn just sold all his cannon and crew and stuff and basically won, which was like, oh, that sucks. I mean, that's just a terrible way to have a game end, because why would you sell all your cannon and stuff in a pirate game? But
doesn't make you a very effective pirate.
I'm going into retirement
on the dock.
Yes, but because he knew the game was ending next turn is the only reason he did that, and that's a problem because that just feels bad to everyone, and probably doesn't feel that. I mean, he wanted to win, so it felt all right, but it doesn't feel as a great way to win when you've played for an hour and a half. You want to have earned that win. So having people that do that weird stuff, I mean, it's not really answering your question, but it's actually really helpful. I mean, you could get annoyed about, that's not how you play this game, but that's your responsibility, is to design the game so that can't happen. So
yeah, that's something that I found. I wrote a Pathfinder scenario. It wasn't, a full game, but just writing that scenario, when we play tested it with different groups, one of the characters was a goblin, and it was specifically designed so that you randomly get selected a character and you don't have any information about your character when you start playing. And so you wake up and you go, okay, well, you look down and you go, I'm a goblin. And in Pathfinder 2E, you can be a goblin. That's just that's an ancestry you can have. And one of our players was like, well, I don't trust them because they're a goblin. And like, that didn't even occur to me that anybody would think that, and that the party wouldn't just go, okay, well, we're all in this together, let's figure it out. And there was discord in the party, and so we had to figure out as GMs how to deal with that. But it was just one of those things, like you said, Dan, I never even considered that would be something that would have to be dealt with until you play with somebody who has a different style of play than you do.
But I can't tell you the number of days I've woken up and said, oh my God, I'm a goblin.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, I could have told you about that.
Going off of the discord within the group, probably some of the funniest moments behind the scenes that our players might not necessarily realize is as a game is being run, especially for in person, Kevin and I need to try and keep in communication. But when you have a room of 30 people and there's 2 of you, that gets a little bit difficult. So I'll have players come up to me and say, "Oh, Kevin said this." And I'll just have to put on a big grin and go, "Oh, I had no idea that my husband decided on that. Let's go run with that." And I have to pretty much BS something right on the spot to try and cover for whatever Kevin did that was completely off the wall and completely not with what we originally planned with plot. So if you want bloopers, that happens at least once a live game, if not more.
If only they could hear the thoughts that are like, wait, that's not the way that's supposed to work.
Oh, if only they could hear the things that I think in my head midst running game. We might have more players bursting out laughing mid-game because I could be particularly snarky.
You never.
Who me?
So what about you, Ed? Any
bloopers?
Or unexpected things at the table?
Not so much funny bloopers, but yeah, unexpected things. And actually, it made me feel good about how well the game was holding up. But I took my games to the World Board Gaming Championships for a few years, and I thought that was a really good experience because these guys are very aggressive board gamers, and they push the game as farther than I'd ever thought it could go. They were coming up with strategies that were completely surprising to me, and it was amazing to watch that happen. And then we'd run into scenarios that I didn't even have any idea that might happen in my game. Like, for instance, in my game, there are checkers that capture each other, and they're trying to capture the king. Well, what happens if each side only has 1 checker left? They just have their kings left. Are they just going to chase each other around the board for the rest of the game? And because I'm in that environment with these top board gamers, they came up with a solution, which is we're going to have crushing walls now, which basically the board gets smaller and smaller, so the kings really have to fight each other. So things like that will happen. I've just had moments when I've had to be creative and on the spot. I took it into a cafeteria at an elementary school, and the kids would be clamoring around the table, all trying to play the game at the same time. And I'd have like 5 games going on at the same time on this one little table. And so, just trying to figure out, okay, how do I manage this crew? And they said, okay, this kid likes the game a lot, and he's pretty good at it. I'm going to make him a referee. And then, okay, all these kids want to play, and all these kids want to play. Okay, this side of the table, play against that side of the table. Yeah, it's fun because you come up with you have to come up with solutions on the spot, and I really love those moments because that's when creativity really comes through.
Yeah, I think that's one great thing about games in general, right? That what all of you are describing is this creative process that's happening not only with yourself or from inspiration that you brought into it, but as you're playing it with people, now there's this whole different dimension that you didn't imagine. But so what's an upcoming goal that you guys have? What's something you're looking forward to taking a next step?
In-person play testing. Actually getting to see real people. I've only been able to do testing online, through Tabletop Simulator. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, and it's been good. It's been great to get this basis, but I feel like in person and online are 2 totally different things. And so really getting to test and see how people react, how people work with one another would would be a big thing. So I can't wait to get back to in-people conventions and try.
How about you, Min? What's a goal?
Besides, obviously, our creating of more scenarios, because we try to create several a year. Honestly, I'm amazed we managed to get 4 out during this past year with how things have been. We're actually really hoping to start writing down some GMing Bibles of what we do for particular scenarios, and we've actually talked about trying to get them published so that fans who want to be able to have a Carcosa experience and can't necessarily get to one of our games at the conventions that we go to would be able to get the GM Bible for it, get the copy of our rules, and take it and make it their own, just like we started way back when. God, it's been over 10 years. Now I feel old. Sorry. Anyway.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yes, it does.
Hey, we've been doing MEPACon for 20 years.
Yeah.
So, talk about
Min,
feeling old.
Do you release any of your content now, like digitally, or like if somebody, so I'm just thinking like I've done murder mystery dinners, you know, where I just have the printed out and you get all the stuff and you can pass out things. Have you ever done anything like that with your
We have
stuff?
not digitally released any of our content yet. It's very much in the, I need to find a layout editor so that we could have somebody else that's not just me working on this and going from there, because I want to make sure that this is really polished and the best product that I could possibly put out. We've done GMing Bibles before during some 24-hour LARP writing competitions that we took a part of, and we actually won 3rd place one time for doing so. And it was definitely a challenge to try doing it in 24 hours and make sure that there was enough content there that somebody else could actually run our game, even if we weren't present to, you know, give it support and advice. So it's a slow process, especially considering just how many scenarios we have to create those Bibles, because that's a lot of behind the scenes little things that we don't even think that we do. We just do it in the moment. But if someone else is going to run the game, they're going to need to know those little details.
So would you have to write one for each scenario? Or
oh, absolutely.
You write like one? Okay.
Absolutely. It would be a game Bible for that particular game. Our rule set is like 3 pages in PDF. It is not that complicated. But the actual like game Bible for one of the games that we submitted for that contest was with layouts of explaining how to set up the room for it, prop lists, actual step-by-step outline for how the plot goes, running tips, frequently asked questions, and everything. It was probably a 40-page document.
Wow.
At least. And that's not touching on any of our rules. That was completely separate from the document.
Wow. So that's a lot for 24 hours.
Yeah, we were kind of insane. Normally it's a team of 5 that did it. And it definitely caused more than a bit of burnout, which is why we only did it twice. So, though granted, Heart of the Sea is one of our best received games and one of the tightest games that we've run because of that. And it definitely helped with propelling our game design ability forward. And I'm very grateful for that. But yeah, creating game Bibles for each of these games, especially with how many we have, this is going to be a monumental undertaking. And we know that, but that's okay.
You could talk,
Dan?
well, I was going to say you could talk to Chuck. He does editing.
Ooh, good to know. Thank you for that.
You know who I'm talking about, right?
I think so.
Throw his full name out here, although maybe he'd like the advertising.
Yeah, you could just send me some contact info after.
Yeah. No, he's usually at MEPACon. He might be even watching you right now. So for me, it's sort of similar. I don't know how loud that music is in the background. Sort of similar in that to Amanda's, in the sense that at least half the reason I do this is for the interaction with other people. And, board games, like Min stuff, is an experience, and do it for the experience. So getting to be in person with people, playing games, conventions in person, is really what I'm looking forward to. That's like number one on the list.
Yeah, I didn't say that one because it's kind of, as much as I love running the digital content, I really miss being in person. But I wanted to make sure that I had at least one of the other things we were looking forward to that I brought up, so that, we kind of end on, happy note.
Yeah, well, it'll be happy here. It'll be happy here soon, hopefully.
Yes.
How about you, Ed? What's a goal that you have?
Yeah, definitely being ready for everything to open up again after people can go to conventions, and being ready for that. I'm about to push the button on a Kickstarter that I've been talking about for a long time, which is for my soccer game. And I'm also figuring out how to manufacture my Battlefield games. And it's kind of scary because I'm really looking at doing some serious investing and trying to make this happen. And I just hope that I've done my homework well enough, and we'll see.
And scarier now because there's a wood shortage, which creates a wood pulp shortage, which means that board game costs have gone up about 30% in the last few months.
Oof.
Wow.
Plus the container issue. I don't know if you're aware of what's going on the West Coast, but it's a disaster. We're going to start having shortages of everything. The containers are just piling up. And Madoshi came in at the middle of March, I want to say, and sat on the port at Tacoma for a month. And it's finally arrived in Ohio, and we'll be in New York on Tuesday, hopefully.
Oh,
but
wow.
A month of just sitting on I'm sorry. Sitting on a dock is insane, but that's not atypical right now.
Yeah, I know even the, getting tech stuff delivered, the whole supply chain is a mess. That's all it's just a mess, and everything takes a lot longer, doesn't necessarily show up as you expect it. I've been getting a lot of, "Oh, we delivered this to you." No, you didn't. We didn't get it. So yeah, that's fun. But
yeah, and what's happened to, like, Skybound Games had a Kickstarter that successfully funded, but the cost of the game went up so much that they canceled their Kickstarter before it finished, but it was already funded. But they just thought, we can't make money when the price goes up this much from the original quote. So there's some, and shipping costs because of this have gone up ×4, I guess. So I'm assuming it'll all stabilize out over time, but the nice thing about Kickstarter, as long as you keep people informed, they're generally very good about it. And I get a lot of people responding like, "Well, we understand it's not your fault yet," and they're used to waiting for stuff on Kickstarter too.
Well, I think it helps that you're being transparent. I mean, I think the problem with anything like that is when people stop communicating with their customers or, the community to really explain what's going on. And that's when you get distrust, and that's problematic. Well, we've been at this for about an hour. Does anybody have any closing thoughts they'd like to send us off on a happy note?
I just want to go off of something Amanda said about throwing out 90% of her ideas. That is so true to so many creative endeavors, writing, photography, art, everything. And it just underscores the fact that really we're a community of storytellers more than anything. I think that's what it comes down to.
Well, but we specifically throw out 90% of Amanda's ideas.
That's not true, Dan. For a while, I was coming up with ideas in your games, and you kept adding them in every time.
Yes, I know. You cats. You help with cats, and we'll never hear the end of it.
It's true.
Well, if you're going to be sassy like that, Dan, you kind of invited yourself for that.
Oh, absolutely.
I just want to say thank you to all the directors and staff for putting on MeetTheCon and for doing these panels. I think they're an awesome addition. And, you know, when we get in person, I think, is it the 40th?
This is the 40th.
This is the 40th. So,
yeah. So we'll be officially having our 20th anniversary in the fall.
So that is what I'm looking forward to. So thank you for everything you guys do too.
Who knows? Maybe we might get a cake again like we did for MepaCon 30.
That would be great.
Oh, that would be exciting.
Yeah.
I'll settle for seeing everyone's face.
I know, right?
Too.
Their whole face.
We have to,
just like this.
Half their face.
Even half
or
their face.
Or not just the box.
Yeah, half their face in person even would be all right.
Yeah, and we're definitely considering doing some online stuff. We've gotten a lot of feedback this weekend that people would like more of the online. You know, we talked to Brendan LaSalle. We couldn't do anything with him in person, but we can do something virtual. And so we're definitely going to keep some of that. We're working on a date for a summer one-day event. We're looking at early August. So we'll definitely be doing some more online stuff. And at our wrap-up stream, which will be at 6 o'clock, we'll definitely throw some dates out there for you guys and let everybody know what we have in the works for the future. But,
and also thank you for the seminar. That world building seminar was amazing, and
so
definitely really excited to see seminars starting to come to MepaCon and to help develop the community and the hobby.
And if anyone out there who's watching or any of you guys on the stream are like, hey, I could do a seminar on something, we're absolutely open to that. We'd have a great, we'd welcome that. We do have some space at the new hotel that we haven't expanded to yet, but we do have some spaces that we could put together some small rooms where the LARP rooms are, as Min would know. There are like 4 of those rooms, and we don't usually use all of them, but we certainly could. So if we want to have a seminar room, if people are interested in that, or a panel room, we definitely have the in-person space for it that we could work out, as well as obviously virtually. So definitely keep those ideas coming. Anyone who has ideas, admin@mepacon.com. It's right on the stream. That goes to Trish and I, and we'll make sure whatever you send us gets to the people it needs to.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Great convention. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.